Hey, it's Pete, GCI Turf. Hope you're having a great day. And I've been a homeowner 15 years. Been married 15 years. My wife and I moved in a little starter home and kept a nice yard. Been in this current house for about 7 years now. And 6 of those 7 years, I've been saving money. And you know, if you've been watching, you know I put an irrigation system in last summer, and I saved up for 6 long years just to be able to put that irrigation system in. So I'm getting ready to fire it up, and this will be my first season with irrigation. I'm very thankful for that. It is a luxury, in my opinion, and figured it'd be a good time to talk about water. Now, if you watch my winterizer video, you saw how I blew the lines out, left all of the valves open. So I'm basically going to go around, close all my valves. Everywhere I actually added a extra hose pipe spigot here, where I can hook a hose pipe up. I think I got about 6 or 7 of these around the entire property. So if I need some water other than irrigation, I can just hook up right there. And as part of that, I still got a mess, man. I got to clean up from the irrigation install, old sprinklers, and there's home plate right there. Got to get that mess up. I got to get my well fired up here. I've cut the power on, so I'm gonna flip this well cover off here and get some water going. This was kind of all part of the my budget, my save. Of course, we blew the budget out of the water with this well. We're supposed to go 300 foot. We ended up going 600 foot. We were 300 feet at 1 gallon per minute, 1 whole gallon. And so we went another 100, still at 1, got all the way up to 500. And I want to say it was about 510 feet or so. And we were still at 1 gallon per minute. And me and Tammy went ahead and made the call on it, said go 100 more feet, and lo and behold, God provided us with 25, it was either 25 or 28 gallons per minute. I'd have to look on the actual paper. So we hit the mother load, and of course I paid double what I wanted to pay for it, but you know how that goes, that's life sometimes. So anyway, here we go. All right, the water's working, and we're going to open this valve. This right here, I've got a bypass for my fertigation system that I'm going to play around with a little bit. But here we go right here. Oh, Lord. Oh, yeah. Open this slow. Well, we got water right here. Oh yeah. Nice and cold too. Let's see here. We'll get down here and crack open these valves and really bleed the air out. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now this is 17,000 square feet of irrigated turf, tall fescue, and yeah, I went overboard on the heads. There are 12 zones at 5 heads apiece. That's 60 heads in 17,000 square feet. I've got very good overlap, extremely good coverage. There is absolutely no lack in coverage whatsoever. I could have probably gotten away with 10 zones pretty easy, but I tightened everything up, and I use those Hunter I-20 heads. So if I get a wet spot, say see this head here is in the middle, it gets this area in the middle gets hit by this head, that head over there, and the head over in the corner. Well, let's say this center section right here gets a little too wet. I can cut that individual head off. That's what I liked about the I-20 heads. Of course, I'm gonna let them all make a cycle or a pass and make sure my coverage is right. Make sure they're spinning and hitting all my corners right. Well, there you can see I let it, come out in the road a little bit, because your edges are where a lot of the stress is going to take place. So I want to make sure they get good and wet, and of course that zone down the middle of the yard, they overlap a little too, but good coverage. Okay, so now I got my irrigation up and going. Well, what's next? Well, if you're new to this, you have to learn your irrigation. You have to learn your yard, let your yard and your turf tell you what it wants. Okay, this isn't hard. This sounds like a big professional thing or whatever, but it's not hard. I'm telling you, it's not hard. The key thing, I know my dry spots in my yard. I can tell you the 3 areas. I've watched this yard for 6 years. I can tell you the 3 areas that as it gets hot and dry, they start to stress out before the rest of the yard. So I'm gonna pay extra attention to those. I don't have any, it's really not hot and dry yet, so I don't have any areas of stress to show you. But what you wanna look for is a bluish color, blue-gray tint in tall fescue. You can really see it at a distance. If you're back a ways, you can look out across the yard and you'll see like a blue haze or a gray haze. That's your first warning. Second warning is going to be the growth. It's going to slow down growing drastically. And the yard is maybe starting to go into some stress or some stress-related things, I guess would be a way to say it. So those are 2 things you want to look for. Well, the other thing I need to look for are my wet spots, okay? First year with irrigation, you need to learn where your wet spots are at, where the ground holds water more than others, shady, that kind of thing. Let me show you, I got 2 good examples in my yard. All right, now, a lot of folks have asked me, those are Cryptomeria japonica. These big trees, I'll do a video on those separate, but that's what they are, Cryptomeria. I'll tell you what, well, I planted them for shade. Look at all this nice afternoon shade I'm getting, and they still got quite a bit of growing to do. So I created an environment for my turf. That's what my goal was when I designed this. I've got a cool video coming that I'm going to show you start to finish how I did this yard, maybe to help you. But over here's full sun during the day. This is the north side of the house. It stays shady. You see all the shade over here. That will probably get half of the actual weekly water than the rest of the yard. And if we come over here, I still gotta do my pine needles. There's not enough hours in the day right now, man. Now this area over here is quite a bit of shade. See, and that's more like filtered sun, I guess, what you call it. But it's way more shade. This area over here has never, ever stressed out, ever. I don't care how hot and how dry it gets. It just does not stress out, and I think that's because it gets good shade right in the heat of the day. So this area, and plus my heads are a little bit closer through this whole section here, this will probably get half the water as the rest of the yard. Another area, and these are, by the way, these are all called microclimates. You know, you can take one yard, and if you are complete full sunlight, of course, you're not really gonna have a lot of microclimates, but if you got trees and shades and that kind of thing, man, you might have several microclimates, meaning little individual climates within the entire property. I've got 10 or 12 at least on mine. This section here tends to stay more wet after it rains. So this will be an area that I'll probably do just half of the water the rest of the yard. And obviously the slope of the yard, when I regraded this entire property, I sloped it this way so that all my water would gradually, it's not a bad slope. I mean, it may be just looking at that, I'm gonna guess that's about a 3-foot drop from the patio to back here, maybe a 2-foot, but it's a gradual slope. And you know, water runs downhill, and when it rains, most of the water's captured here. So that's the only thing I can come up with. So this section, the north side and the strip right here, would get half the water as, say, the rest of the yard. How do we actually water? How are you gonna water, Pete? Well, I'm gonna tell you. First, I need to know, I don't water by minutes, okay? I want you to be very clear about that. You cannot water by minutes. Tall fescue requires around 1 inch per week. So how do we know if we're getting 1 inch? Well, you can't say 30 minutes equals 1 inch because it's mathematically impossible. That's something you don't know. I don't know. I have no clue how much. It'd be like taking your water spigot and turning it on in the house and letting it run for a minute, and you just guessing that's putting out 2 gallons. Well, you don't know that. You might could get lucky and guess and get close, but you don't know unless you actually measure it. So I call this the irrigation volume measuring. Volume means how much water is coming out of those heads and being put on the ground. So it's a very, very simple way I do this. I'll take a couple of measuring cups or tuna cans. Make sure the cups are the same, because if they're different sizes, you'll get different amounts of water in each one. And let me show you how to do this. Okay, so right here, I've got one zone along the edge. And of course, everybody's irrigation is different. This is why this is so daggone important. I mean, different pressures, different volumes, different nozzle sizes. Everything is different. You can't have one standard, everybody water 30 minutes 3 times a day. Or 3 times a week. It is not that easy if you want to be technical about it. So I've got a zone here. I've got another zone that goes through here. So what I'm gonna do is come out here in the middle of these 2 zones, and I'm gonna throw me a cup down in here, set it up to where it, like so. And then I'm gonna go over here, maybe 15 or 20 feet, like this. We'll come over here and stick me another cup right here. Now, the reason I set it between 2 zones is because I'm gonna get overlapping coverage, right? So I'm not just measuring one zone, I'm measuring this one too. Now, you'll have to kind of figure this out on your own as to where to set your cups to measure, simply because your irrigation system is probably different than mine. So mine are all rotors, meaning they pop up out of the ground, they spin left to right. There are pop-up heads which pop up and spray a flat mist. So my wife is sitting there laughing at me because I'm doing a video. Dude, would you quit? You just screwed me up. I don't know what to say now.
I'm glad I could take your breath away.
Yes, you take my breath away, my baby. Okay, hang on. Dude.
I'll go back to you. I'm just
No, you stay right there. I'm good. Okay. So we've got the crap. Now I think you really did mess me up. I don't know where I was at. Okay, so everybody's irrigation is not the same. Okay, we got that part. So I've got a zone right here, and I've got a zone over there. So I'm going to measure the combination of the two zones. That's why I put it in the middle. Now, you know, you're going to have to figure this out on your own on your irrigation. You're going to have to strategically put some cups out in the yard and measure. Now, since I know my system pretty good, I'm only going to measure this one zone. Okay, if you know your irrigation system very well, you can measure one zone or two zones, or I'm going to measure the combination of these two. But if you don't know your system, you may want to do this for every zone in the yard. I know it's a lot of work, but we want to do things correctly. So I'm going to turn this zone on, and it's going to run for an hour. I'm going to turn this zone on, and it's going to run for an hour as well. I'm going to take the accumulation that's in those two cups and measure it with a ruler, tape measure. See how much water that produces. See how much volume of water I get on the ground from 1 hour of time from each of these. So let's just pretend, I'm gonna do this, it's late in the evening, no wind's blowing. Let's just pretend that I get a ½ an inch of water in 1 hour from the combination of these two zones right here. But that means I need to run these two zones a total of 2 hours, right? So if I got an hour here, hour and a here, an hour over here, hour here, equals a ½ inch, right? If I want 1 inch, that means I need to run 2 hours and 2 hours to get 1 inch. And of course, this is probably my favorite option. This is the ESP Me Rainbird series, and it's getting the schedule and settings, and you can see what I named it. It's raining now. So let's go down here to water, and I'm honestly trying to remember from last year what zones or which. Let's go out here to 7. Let's hit start. Oh, there it is. There's 7 up there. Let's cut that off. Let's run zone number 8. There we go. All right, there's zone number 8. So I'm gonna let 8 run for 1 hour, and then I'm gonna run zone 9 for 1 hour, and I'll add the total up. Now I've already done this last year, and that actually comes up to about a ½ an inch, so I already know I'm just gonna double check it from last year. All right, so now we're measuring the water. We're gonna find out how long the irrigation or the zone has to run in order to put out an inch of water. So we just learned how to do that. So when do we water? Well, you don't want to water in the afternoon, that's for sure. Now we're not talking about aeration and seeding. We're talking about a maintenance type watering during the summer. Do not water in the evening because you don't want that moisture sitting on the grass blade overnight, okay? That's a big no-no. That humidity, that lack of airflow in the turf and the fescue, is real thick, it's a thick grass, will cause brown patch in the yard. So we'll be talking about brown patch here real soon. But early in the morning, I will typically turn mine on, set it to come on about 3 a.m. I want it off and done running by around 9 o'clock. Now let's jump back to the beginning of the video, or the middle of the video, when I said I water a little differently. I don't set it and just let it go. Okay, that's one thing I do not do. Since I have irrigation, I have control over it. So I'm going to tell the system when to come on and when not to come on. I'm not going to go over here and program the timer and run it whatever, 3 days a week or 4 days a week for blah, blah, whatever minutes. That's not my cup of tea, man. A lot of people overwater their turf. They waste their water. They run the water too long, too many days. A lot of our clients run it more frequent during the week, meaning more days during the week and less minutes, when they should be running it more minutes and less frequently. We want deep soaking. That's what we want. We want to give the turf a good healthy dose, an inch of water. Let that inch soak down, let the turf use it, let the dirt dry out some. Let the dirt dry out some. Now, I didn't say let it get bone dry. Let it dry out some. And this is part of you learning your turf, learning your dirt, learning how much water it can hold at one time without things getting soggy and over wet or whatever. So what I'll do is I will watch my turf, and I will let my turf tell me when it's thirsty. You know, when your son or your daughter's thirsty and they want something to drink, they'll come to you and say, "Hey, Daddy, I'm thirsty. Can I have a glass of water?" Well, for my kids, it's chocolate milk. They're chocolate milk nuts. And I'll give them a glass of chocolate milk and say, "Hey, yeah, go get you a glass of chocolate milk." Well, they'll tell me. Well, it ain't no different with my turf. I'm gonna let the grass tell me. So that goes back to the signs of stress. That means you have to pay attention. You can't just set that control and let it go. You have to pay attention to the turf. When it slows down growing, you got to be thinking it might need some water. When you start seeing those blue tint or gray tint in the yard, it definitely needs some water, for sure. If you get down real close to the turf and pull up a blade of grass and you see it, it's called needling. And what happens is the blade of turf kind of curls up like that. And it's not a big, nice, flat blade of grass. Well, that turf, that plant is dehydrated at that point in time. It needs some water. So how I'm gonna do this is I'll typically mow. I usually mow my fescue at least twice a week during the spring because it needs it. If it stays wet in the summer, you'll keep mowing twice a week. If you're on the GCI Academy plan, you will, because we feed the turf, right? So you'll mow it a couple times a week, and it'll start slowing down if it gets hot and dry. And then if you have irrigation, you need to watch. And when it starts slowing down in the growth, you'll get out and you'll get your yard cut, get it mowed or whatever, and then you'll go ahead and water the next morning. So another thing I don't like to do, I don't like watering on the days I mow, okay? Meaning if I know I'm gonna mow the yard on Thursday, I will not water Thursday morning. Matter of fact, I won't even water Wednesday morning. I want the turf dry when I mow. I want the ground somewhat dry when I mow. Moist is okay, not wet. Get your irrigation set up. Figure out how long it takes to get an inch of water, okay? That's the key. Learn your yard. Learn when it's telling you it's thirsty, okay? Now you have to take into consideration rainfall. If I get, okay, here's a great example. Today is Tuesday, and last week on Wednesday and Thursday, part of Friday, we got almost 4 inches of rain. So if you figure that up, an inch per week, well, that's 4 weeks. Well, maybe. But I guarantee you, I can go 3 weeks on that. So even though I've got my water set up, ready to go, I'm not gonna run it at least for 3 more weeks. It's gotta get really hot, really fast. So I know that's shocking some people, but you gotta remember, before I even had irrigation, I was able to keep this fescue looking really good during the hot heat of the summer, simply by managing it, mowing it right, the correct height, feeding it the correct things at the right time, all that kind of thing. So this whole water thing, I'm honestly not going to use it a lot. I'm going to use it strictly when the turf grass needs it, and that's it. So hey, I hope this has helped. I hope this has helped you understand how to measure your water so that you know exactly how much it's putting out. Now, for you, those of you that don't have irrigation, I just put a video up with big league sprinklers, and I can give you 10% off on any of those sprinklers. Measure it the same way. Take one of those sprinklers, set it out, let it run for an hour, measure the total volume that you collect, and then you'll know what you have to run it to get an inch. And then hey, Again, you don't have to run the water so daggone much. Water the turf when it tells you it wants water. So hey, hope this has helped. Thank you so much for watching. We just hit 11,000 people, subscribers. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on, but obviously we're doing something right, so we're gonna keep on doing it, right? Have a great evening and get your irrigation right.